All right, folks, hello and welcome back to Online English Class. Hope you guys are doing well today. Today, we are going to engage in our sixth review for your upcoming AP exam, which is on May 20th at 2 p.m. Before we get into that, let's quickly run through the top of the week announcements. First of all, you need to make sure that when you're done with all your work for the semester that you return your books to my room at some point. You can do this when you come to clean out your locker, or if you need to hang on to it for some reason. You can schedule a time later to drop by and drop it off. I'll be here probably for the next couple weeks working on finishing up all the grading that I have to do. So you absolutely can drop by. Just send me an email. I'll be around. All right. Beyond that, remember that your AP exam is on Wednesday at 2 p.m. Be ready to log in at 1:30 and be ready to give your absolute best effort on that exam. Okay. You also want to make sure that you are continuing to accomplish your discussion grade responsibilities on a daily basis. Okay, there was some confusion on Friday in my haste to wrap up a pretty lengthy video on Friday. I neglected to give you your additional assignment. I then posted a comment explaining the assignment in the scroll of comments under the video. Some of you guys missed that. If you missed that opportunity to do that, or you just didn't see it or whatever, that's okay. Just move forward at this point. You can go back on your own volition and do the task for practice if you would like to. Okay, so you need to make sure that you're finishing the process or preparing for the AP exam by whatever means you deem necessary for you. Okay, you've got all the review material that can sharpen and deepen your knowledge of how to read rhetoric, how to write about rhetoric reasonably. You've got resources from the College Board, past prompts, past essay examples of successful essays and unsuccessful essays. You got a lot of different resources that you can use here beyond engaging with the information that I'm putting in front of you on these videos. The rest of it's kind of up to you, okay? So you also need to make sure that you've engaged with all of these documents from the College Board. A summary of the information is available here. You can simply Google AP English Language and Composition Exam 2020 Coronavirus Updates, and it summarizes all of the important information about when the exam will be, how to access it, what you need on the day of the exam, etc. Okay? Finally, your ongoing assignment is your quarter 4 essay draft. That needs to be done and given to me anytime from May 18th today to May 22nd on Friday. Hopefully, you simply need to batten down the hatches, make sure that it's airtight before you submit it. Okay, if you are freaking out about that or really, really running out of time and can't properly prepare for your exam, then don't hesitate to send me an email and we'll work out a better time for you to give me the essay, okay? So without any further ado, let's go ahead and return to the preparation process, all right? If you guys will, just meditate very intentionally on the information that I'm going to give you today. It's not incredibly difficult to understand, but it is vital in your success on the essay. What we're going to talk about today constitutes 4 out of the 6 points that you are going to be scored for on your exam, okay? So up to this point, we've talked about how to read rhetoric effectively. Okay, and yesterday we talked quickly about the most basic, or our last class, not technically yesterday, okay, but on Friday we talked about the fundamental skills for writing an effective rhetorical analysis. First of all, you need to be able to take account of the rhetorical situation of the document that you are writing, not the document that you are reading. Okay, you also need to be able to do that, but the document that you are writing. Okay, the document that you're writing is a rhetorical analysis essay in an academic setting. So your introduction, how you step into that conversation and how you step out of that conversation needs to be appropriate to the purpose and context of the rhetorical situation. It is wise for you, appropriate for you to make sure that your introduction takes account of the rhetorical situation and identifies what the speaker's primary goal is. All right. If you don't know what the speaker's goal is, then what are you analyzing, anyways? Right. How are you going to analyze the choices that the speaker makes to develop that goal or support that goal if you don't know what the goal is? So, first of all, in your introduction, always, always, always identify what the speaker's goal is, what they are trying to do. All right. And then, if you want to finish your introduction with a thesis statement, all right, that requires proof or defense, as we discussed yesterday, then you would need to explain the choices that the writer has made or is making in the text in order to make their message appealing. All right. For example, right, with our analysis of the Gandhi text, right, Gandhi attempts to persuade Lord Irwin to yada yada yada. That's his purpose. All right, he accomplishes this goal by, right, summary of his ethos argument. His rhetoric also cultivates a summary of his pathos argument. Finally, Gandhi deploys a summary of his logos argument, all of which are choices that Gandhi makes in order to help defend or develop this central goal. All right. So, if you want your introduction to finish with a thesis statement, then you need to have some kind of sentence articulating what the speaker is doing to develop their goal, to defend their purpose. All right. Now, if because you are pressed for time or you're having a hard time, you're just having a sort of brain lock or writer's block, if you just need to start analyzing the text, okay, identify what the speaker is trying to do. You got to be able to do that, right? What's the speaker up to? Right? What are they trying to do? Identify what it is and then get into your analysis and analyze it chronologically. Chunk that text up into paragraphs. Okay, what's happening in this section of the text? What's happening in this section of the text? What's happening in this section of the text? Ask those 3 questions to yourself. Write 3 analytical body paragraphs. And then when you get to your conclusion, look back at your line of reasoning and articulate the salient arguments or the salient choices that the speaker has made to make his argument appealing. You conclude with that statement of purpose and then those supporting analytical observations, and you'll have the thesis point waiting for you in your conclusion. The College Board doesn't care if you give your thesis at the beginning or the end. I recommend giving it at the beginning and the end, right? Why? Because it helps solidify your line of reasoning. It makes your essay extra cogent and gives you double the opportunity to get that all-important thesis point, okay? So the next area of composition that we're going to be discussing today, our 6th review point, all right, is the function and essential components of an analytical body paragraph. All right, so if we've got our introduction and conclusion done, then the next portion of the essay that we need to think about that constitutes 4 out of the 6 points in the scoring criteria is your body paragraphs. What do those need to look like? What should they look like? Okay, and in the College Board standards, they say that you ought to be able to develop a paragraph that includes a claim and evidence supporting that claim. On the most basic level, a paragraph in argumentative writing, all right, whether it's a kind of analytical, interpretive argument or an argument of policy or of value, it needs to have some kind of claim, all right? It's not helping anything if it doesn't have some kind of claim. All right, so what should your claim look like? What would your claim look like in a body paragraph? Well, the purpose, the function of a body paragraph is to support your central claim. All right, so for example, in this sample analysis of Gandhi's rhetoric, my first body paragraph could be about how Gandhi develops his pathos argument and ethos argument in the first few paragraphs, the first section of the text. All right, the claim would be these specific text in this specific portion of the argument does this and this, and these moves help Gandhi accomplish this. All right, that claim has to be supported with what? Some data. All right, so we're using the language of the Toulmin model. What's the data here? Well, what's the evidence here? It is the textual examples of the ways in which Gandhi is doing this, right? How is he actually accomplishing these impressions in his with his language use, right? Where can we point to examples in the text of him doing these things? Some of you guys know this backwards and forwards, okay? But it's worth it for you just to think through it consciously again, all right? Now, the data is not all that you need. You also need to what on that data? You need to offer to use the language of the Toulmin model, a warrant, or as we talk oftentimes in analytical writing, commentary. What do we mean by commentary? Well, simply think of it like this. You need to comment on the significance of the data and how that data relates to your central claim or develops Gandhi's rhetorical purpose. Right? If you're not doing that, then your body paragraph is simply making a claim. Look, Gandhi's doing this, and see, he wrote this and this and this. But you're not explaining how this and this and this, the pieces of text that you've identified, actually develop his goal or appeal to his audience or affect his audience in a way that is useful for him as a writer. Okay, so your body paragraphs, their function is to support the central claim or the thesis. The essential components of that analytical body paragraph is claim about how a specific portion of a text functions in the argument, data, textual evidence that helps you illustrate the rhetorical move being made in that section of text, and then finally commentary that explains the significance of that rhetorical move. Okay, now those individual body paragraphs need to be bound together in something that we call a line of reasoning. Okay, what is a line of reasoning? It is a string of assertions, a string of paragraphs, technically in this scenario, that help defend your overall argument. And what is your overall argument? It is your thesis, okay? Gandhi tries to do this, and he accomplishes this goal by doing this, this, and this, and this, okay? So that argument is supported by a series of body paragraphs organized together in a line of reasoning, okay? So line of reasoning, the phrase itself implies continuity, right? It implies that your body paragraphs work together, all right, to support your explanation of how Gandhi is using rhetoric to develop his goal. It should be, therefore, connected to its head. Every paragraph needs to be connected to the thesis. Every paragraph needs to be connected to the thesis. What does the thesis say? It says that Gandhi's goal is this. He accomplishes this goal by doing this. When you provide textual examples of Gandhi doing this, you need to explain how this rhetorical move helps Gandhi put Lord Irwin and his British readers in a position, in a state of mind, in a state of in a relationship with him, and in a state of heart that is beneficial for developing his goal. Every paragraph needs to be connected to the head. All right, a line of reasoning has to be connected to the beginning of the line. And also, the line of reasoning needs to be connected to itself. All right, the other appendages of the body paragraphs need to have reasonable continuity with each other. This point brings us to the next aspect of the College Board standards for excellent analytical writing, okay? And that is the use of transitional elements to guide the reader through the line of reasoning. All right. Now, when we talk about transitional elements, it can often seem abstract. What do you want me to do? You want me to just write first, second, third at the end of it, at the beginning of every paragraph? What do you want me to do? I'm going to give you a concrete example of some reasonable transitional elements that help guide a reader through a line of reasoning in a sample student essay in just a moment. Okay. The last aspect of solid analytical writing that they want you to show mastery of is, quote, using appropriate methods of development to advance your argument. Now, that is a super vague kind of statement. Appropriate methods. Well, appropriate just means appropriate to the context, all right? And in rhetorical analysis writing, okay, there are kind of two appropriate ways of going about structuring organizing your body paragraphs, okay? The first way is topically, all right? So listen carefully. If we go back to this example thesis statement where Gandhi attempts to yada, 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 and he attempts to do so by yada, 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 and by cultivating a yada, 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 and deploying a yada, 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 what we can do, all right, is go to that document and analyze how all of Gandhi's ethos argument functions and evidences itself in the text, throughout the text, to persuade Lord Irwin of his central purpose. And then we could talk about his pathos argument and then we could talk about his logos argument. That would be separating the essay topically, okay? So you would analyze the passage out of chronological order. You might analyze the beginning and then the end, and then you might analyze the end, and then you might analyze, the fourth paragraph. But all of them are unified by this sort of unifying topic sentence. In this paragraph, I'm going to discuss how Gandhi supports his purpose by characterizing himself as blah, 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 blah. Okay? So you can 100% do that. The other appropriate method that is oftentimes, I think, a little easier within the context of time restraints is the chronological structure of the essay. So after you have this nice, well-divvied, well-parsed thesis statement here that says this is what Gandhi's trying to do, and these are some ways that Gandhi structures his rhetoric in order to help him accomplish his goal, you then chunk the passage. You say, first, I'm going to analyze the rhetorical significance, the choices made in the first 3 paragraphs of the argument. And that might lead you to make observations about how he characterizes himself and how he cultivates a sense of shame in Irwin. Okay? Then the next section of your argument might focus purely on his deployment of his line of reasoning in the 4th paragraph that leads to some rational conclusions. All right, leaving Irwin no rational choice but to relent. All right. And then at the end of the essay, right, at the very end of the essay, you could return to his cultivation of the pathos and ethos appeal. That would be a chronological structure. Both of those are, quote, appropriate methods of developing and advancing the argument. But, very importantly, you need to explain. It needs to be very clear to your reader that you're doing one of the two of those methods. Okay? So, in order to flesh out, in order to give ourselves an actual example of all these things we've talked about, let's look quickly at a student essay that was written on AP Classroom about the Gandhi prompt. Okay, so first and foremost, right, we're misspelling Gandhi. Not a big deal, but pay attention to detail. All right, and let's look at the introduction. Right here in the introduction, right, we get a sort of introduction, a basic overview of the rhetorical situation. That's always good to introduce things in the introduction, I suppose. All right, and then the student identifies what Gandhi is attempting to do, what Gandhi's goal is, what Gandhi's arguing. All right, and the student somewhat misspeaks here that India will achieve its independence. I think what the student means to say is that they should be granted it. That's what Gandhi is in the end trying to persuade Lord Irwin and the British imperial overlords to do, is to grant them their independence, to purify themselves of their greed. Okay, so I've entered a little edit here, but again, doesn't sink the ship. All right, and also another important impression here is that they should reach this agreement on this matter without the use of violence. All right, that's an important aspect of the argument. So do we have a statement of purpose? Yes, okay. Now, has the student established a really well-developed articulation of the moves that Gandhi makes in order to develop this purpose? No, this is pretty perfunctory and definitely needs to be developed in the course of the body paragraphs. Luckily for the student, the body paragraphs do just that. All right, so when we talk about transitional elements, I'd like for you to first note that the student begins with a transitional prepositional phrase in the opening paragraphs. Okay, first of all, now your reader knows that you're going to do a chronological analysis. And you cannot deviate from that. If you're going to do a chronological analysis, you got to do the whole passage chronologically. And you can't just analyze the opening paragraphs. You have to analyze the development of the entire argument. Okay, so make sure you do that. But this nice little transitional element, is that rocket science? Is that hard to do? No. But you don't want to miss out on laying that out for your reader, because it establishes an overarching structure and pattern that your essay is going to follow. This is great for your, guess what? Your logos appeal. It makes your it makes your line of reasoning easier to follow. Okay, so in the opening paragraphs, nice transitional element, Gandhi establishes himself as one who understands the stakes of the conflict and has the right to speak on the matter as one who desires to serve both parties. Okay, very obviously, the student is discussing Gandhi's development of his credibility. Okay, so are we fleshing out this vague claim? Yes. Is this a claim that now needs to be evidenced with some data? Yeah. All right. So we got a claim, and now we need some data. He acknowledges that his proposition of nonviolence could be, quote, fairly termed as a large risk, but that his country, India, is worth the risk as it is a numerous, ancient, and cultured nation. Gandhi expresses his desire to, all right, should be to there, not on, to convert Great Britain to see the Indian nation as such. He says he wants to serve them, even as I serve my own. Okay, he characterized, so do we have some textual examples that help portray Gandhi as one who understands the stakes of the conflict and has the right to speak on the matter, who desires to serve both parties? Okay, yes. All right. It's very obviously discussing the ways in which the speaker is characterizing himself as a man who wants to serve both Great Britain and also his own. He characterized, now we're going to get into some commentary. He characterizes himself as self-sacrificial, okay, we need a little connectivity there, and caring deeply about the welfare of both parties. He presents himself as one who is willing to take risk for the benefit of others and to serve people who are not his own. Okay, he then appears to have the interest of Great Britain at heart, that even after he realized there would be no cooperation, that his object was still to serve them, and that if the British Empire did not sooner retrace its step, they would also suffer. Okay, so in other words, Gandhi seems to have a desire to serve both parties at heart. Has that been evidenced in the text? Yes. Now, what I would recommend is to expand the student's commentary to connect it back to how all of these choices, right? If you want to really develop your commentary in a more sophisticated way, then you might want to connect this observation back to how it affects Irwin specifically. All right, as an audience member, how this puts him in a frame of heart or in a relationship with Gandhi that is useful for Gandhi's larger purpose to be accomplished. Okay, now it's implied. All right, well, if Gandhi seems like he's going to serve both parties, it obviously makes Irwin more likely to listen to what Gandhi has to say, right? Okay, but explaining that explicitly, walking through that process, showing that you clearly understand that's what Gandhi is trying to do, that's something that on your exam, it will benefit you to do. All right, don't leave things unsaid. All right, make sure you explicitly reason through what is called your warrant. All right, or reason through your commentary explicitly. Okay, some of you guys struggle with that. More than any other part of analytical writing, you struggle with reasoning through the commentary fully. All right? All right, now let's check this out. Another little transitional element. Gandhi then lays out the reasoning of the Indian desire for independence. Okay, so it would be good to identify what paragraph that Gandhi does this in. That would help target a certain area of text. That would help develop this transition to be more effective. But we do have this very nice little transitional phrase here, this transitional word here, that helps signal the fact that we're moving to another area of text. I'd like to know which area of text. Okay, not sure why I don't get that, but we have gestured toward using transitional elements effectively. At the end of his letter, okay, another transitional element that helps move us to the next section of the argument. All right, now each one of these paragraphs, I'm not going to go through all of them in detail, have a certain level of acclaim, a certain level of data, and a certain level of commentary, but they could use a bit of development in order to add some sophistication and some nuance to the student's understanding of this piece of rhetoric. But has the basic job been done here? Yes. Has this very vague thesis statement been substantiated with a more detailed description of how he builds that credibility and how he develops that logical argument? Yes. What is missing here? A conclusion. All right. Go ahead and write me a nice conclusion that looks back on your line of reasoning and makes and remakes the statement, but this time, in light of the analysis that you've offered, is more specific. Okay. Go ahead and do that. Right. That will improve the quality of your essay as a whole and shore up the fact that you have every right to get that thesis statement point. Okay. Now, all of you guys, I think, hopefully understand what I'm trying to tell you to do. Okay, so if you deploy a reasonable line of reasoning, okay, if you deploy a rational argument to defend your thesis statement, and the thesis statement is specific, and you have body paragraphs that introduce claims and then offer textual data or textual evidence, and then you comment on how that textual evidence is relevant to supporting the thesis, and it's tied together with transitional phrases, and it's developed in an appropriate way, right? This essay, chronologically. Another way, obviously, could be topical. This essay is chronological. It's fine. It's appropriate. It does the job. Then, all right, with respect to the scoring criteria for the rhetorical analysis, you should get 4 points out of 4 points, right? You should have evidence, specific evidence to support all of your claims in your line of reasoning, and you should have commentary that consistently explains how that evidence supports your line of reasoning. And as you are doing so, you should be discussing how the rhetorical choices in the passage contribute to the writer's argument, purpose, or message as a whole. Is that not exactly what I just told you to do? Yes, it was. All of you can do that, and that means that all of you have every right to get 4 out of 4 on this section of the argument. Okay? Combine that with a thesis statement, and you've got 5 out of the 6 points already, and you are sitting so pretty. All right, you are sitting great. Tomorrow we'll discuss how you can obtain this last point, the sophistication point, the highbrow point, the Craigie breach point is what they're actually proposing to rename it. Okay, so have an excellent day. No unique assignment today. Just make sure that you write a nice, neat, and tidy summary of the stuff that we've discussed today, showing me that you understand precisely what it is that we discussed, precisely the writing skills that you need to exhibit in order to get 4 out of 4 points on the body paragraphs of your essay, the body portion, the evidence and the commentary for your line of reasoning. Have an excellent, excellent day.